Well, good morning, everyone. This is John Craig, and yes, I'm here. Can you believe that I'm here this week? It's actually 2 weeks in a row, and I'm so glad that I can be with you all today. Y'all have been so faithful in terms of being part of Let Us Reason Together. Get the word out, that I'm back today. So, but anyway, we want you to have a good time today. We've got some news today that you want to make sure that you stay tuned in, because we need to talk about this. We got some things to talk about. We also have some fun things we're going to be talking about, and of course, we do not want to miss the Torah portion or the Brit Hadashah. We're going to get to all these things today and more. And of course, we're going to have some interaction. We're going to have some midrash. We're going to have the opportunity by which we can, and here we go, I'm going to give my spiel, where we can sit down, reason out current events, cultural shifts, and of course, this week's Torah portion. We can either push back or push through. Nevertheless, if iron does not sharpen iron, sparks will never fly, let alone ever get a fire going. And in the middle of the summer, you need a fire. That's all I can say. So without a little heat and a good midrash, how will our hearts ever get soft and moldable enough to be transformed in the way that the Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, wants us to be, and maybe have a little fun along the way? I had to get that in, right? It's been a little bit. I got to say it last week, and did I say it last week? I did say it last week. So I said it again this week. And this, by the way, Let Us Reason Together is based on Isaiah 1:18. Come now and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sins are scarlet, they will be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they will be like wool. And again, my name is John Craig. The absent have been absent. Second day of the week host for Let Us Reason Together. And what is today? It's Monday, August the 3rd, 2020. It's the 13th day of the 5th month, which some call the month of Av in the Hebrew year 5780. So we want you to be part of it. And I've got some thoughts for you. But right now, I'm going to bring in one of my co-hosts. And it is the great, illustrious Mr. Mark David Smith. And good morning, Mark.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Actually, I can't see it because my screen's too small. I got to read it real quick. Wearing a mask could save your life. Hello, Mr. Wearing a Mask Could Save Your Life.
What's up?
So, yeah, it's good to I'm glad you're here, Mark, because you know, how many shows have we not been able to do together?
437.
When I do one a week, that's a lot. Or 2 week, actually. No, actually it's 3. I do 3 a week when I'm on track, and that is
rare.
It's rare. So we've got the Monday War Room, which Sandi and I do, and then we have the Let Us Reason Together, and then also Sandi and I do a show called Walking in Spirit of Truth, which is on Tuesday evenings. If I'm here. This last week we're not able to do it because I was still out of town. I couldn't make it back into town on time, but those are the shows that we do. Sandi and I pastor. And Sandi does another one, which is the next chapter on Thursday at the same time. Had to think about that. But Sandi and I also pastor Life of Worship here in Amarillo, Texas. And we have our regular services on Shabbat, where we have our Torah portion at 2:00 and our regular worship services at 5 p.m. on Shabbat. And so you can join us on YouTube at Life of Worship Amarillo. Just go there, check it out. And
Amarillo, not O.
Well, yeah, but if you get there, you type in Amarillo, it'll get there. And then also Torah portion, if you want to be part of our Torah portion studies, you can email us and we can make sure we can send you an invitation on Zoom, because that's where we do that. So also want to give you a heads up. Life of Worship's having a Sukkot, and it's called Clear Vision. What is it called? Clear Vision 2020, Yeshua the Waymaker. And so that's going to be hosted here in the Panhandle of Texas. If you're anywhere nearby, or if you're not nearby and you want to come join us, we have a beautiful place that we meet together at Lake Paladuro, which is in the northern part of the Texas Panhandle. It's just a beautiful camping area, big trees. We've got a living water. We've got a lake sitting there that we will do mikvahs in. We've got things planned, people coming in. We've got special speakers. So check it out. You can go to lifeofworshipamarillo.org to check that out. It will begin on October the 2nd.
We actually have pictures. There's pictures.
Yeah, pictures on there. So I want to introduce my next co-host, who is just waiting for me to bring her in. And that is my lovely bride, Miss Sandi Craig. Actually, and so today it's no more and games. No more games. Do you get that? No more games.
Do I get that?
Yeah. Do you understand that? So I got some weird and quirky shower thoughts for you today. So
wait, before you get started on that,
yeah,
we should make note that Sandi now has the same blouse but a different color on. Once again, this is the third one I've noticed with a different color. Are you like dyeing these blouses in between shows?
You know what? Many years ago when I bought them, because they're 100% linen, they were at the Gap. And they had them like for nothing. And I got one in every color. And what you're also anyway, I got one in so many different colors because they're 100% linen.
And it's hard to find good linen.
Oh, really? How about that?
So, and linen is healing. Wear it on your body.
Yeah, right. I
So,
sleep
hey,
on it every night.
yes. And so I wear them a lot. I just don't always wear the same under thing. And so what you're recognizing is in the under thing that I also have in many different colors.
So we're talking about underwear again. Then.
No, we're talking about 2 shirts. I have 2 shirts on.
Oh, okay.
So, and you're noticing the one that the crisscrosses is a different shirt. So
I see. Because it kind of looks like maybe one blouse
it's not. It's 2.
Oh, okay. Well, that's never mind.
Hey, real quick, I want to say something to Jason. Jason, hey, it is good to see you here. We missed you yesterday, and we are going to meet today at Life of Worship in the other unit.
Yes,
at 7
p.m.
We're going to have a meeting on things that are happening. So we would love for you and Christine to be there. So sorry about that, but our family is sitting there with us, and we want to let him know what's going on. So
yeah.
Can I come too?
Sure.
You're welcome. Just come on over. Just hop in that private plane that you have.
They're ground and everything right now. I am in the middle of a hurricane right now. You realize that, right?
Yes. And so is it blowing? I could hear that. Yeah. There you go. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you opening that window there and giving us.
Yeah, you bet. Sure.
Oh, whoa.
He felt it.
Whoa. All right. Okay. Talk about weird and quirky. So let's have some weird and quirky shower thoughts today.
You and your shower thoughts. We know you're back if we're going to have shower thoughts.
I know. So what is the shower? It's not the place just to sing. It's where we're separated from our cell phones and we're standing under that running water, which allows our minds to be free.
Well, some of us are not so attached to our cell phone like that.
Okay.
Some of us pretty much just pray in the shower.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to let your mind go free. So here's something to think about. Go to bed when you feel go to bed. You'll feel better in the morning is the human version of, did you turn it off and turn it back on again?
What?
Go to bed and you'll feel better in the morning is the human version of, did you turn it off and turn it back on again?
Whatever.
Yeah, like if you got a problem with something.
That one did nothing for me.
You got a problem with something, they just said turn it off turn it back on.
That does not work for women. Women think you say something and we'll think about it, we'll dream about it, we'll wake up thinking about it. That doesn't work for girls.
Well,
doesn't.
I don't have an answer for you, but the other half of the population, we get that.
And then you'll have to be reminded 6 times before you go there again. So
this shower thought must have come from a man. Here's something for you, Sandi. This is something I specifically found for you. Maybe the plants are really farming us giving us oxygen until we eventually expire and turn into mulch, which they can consume.
That's morbid.
No, that's a possibility.
So you would think the grass is always greener in a cemetery.
Not really, because you're in a box where you can't get there. But if they weren't a box there, that might actually be true.
Yeah.
We are really narrow-minded when it comes to us and everything around us, even though the book says that we have dominion over the animals and the earth and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You got me thinking now. You got me thinking. Of course, that really only goes right up to the edge of the earth, though. The grass being in control, because maybe on the other side, it's a different story.
That's true. But over in Washington State, you can have your body donated to your local park or garden or whatever. They're actually doing that in Washington State. Yeah, made it legal to turn your body into mulch.
Mulch. Hey, I'm hearing myself through your computer. No, there it goes. Okay.
So here's something else. Here's a thought for you, Mark. We basically rent water.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, think about it. Okay. Is your water free that comes into your home?
We have a septic tank and we have a water well, yes.
Okay. Oh, well, that's good. You've got a water well.
But you have to dig the well.
But you got to dig the well. You got to pay the money for it to get the water out.
I figure that's what you're talking about when we rent water is the water. You always put your water well right next to your septic tank, see? And so your septic tank filters everything that goes through it and then runs it through your well, and then you drink that water, and it just... No, that's not the way it works, is it?
No.
Okay, sorry.
No. But think about this. I remember years ago I was on a trip to London, England, because we lived in Norway, and we were on a sports trip, and we got on the bus from Heathrow Airport, and we were driving along, and of course the driver had to make some comments as we're driving into London, and said that the water in London at that point in time had been recycled at least 7 times.
Well.
Yeah. But the thing is, you have to pay for that water when you bring it into your home. Each time. Recycled water.
Yeah. Well, see, we have a water well. The only thing we pay for is the electricity to run the pump.
Yeah. All right. How about this? Vehicles today can surf the web, link to your phone, stream music and videos, etc., but they still cannot perform a simple database lookup to tell you what the check engine light is on for.
Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. These cars do all these different things, but you have to go to the mechanic to connect your computer to say, why is that light on?
It should be able to just tell you.
It should tell you. Think about that. You should be able to know. It's telling you something. So why not tell you what it is exactly?
They used to have, of course, still had to go to the service station, but they used to have these big machines that, you would hook up to things. I guess it still does to the computer on there, but they put that big machine down into a small one to put it on your engine in your car, so to tell you to go to the service station. So it's kind of like all they did was just make the machine smaller, and then
Yep, exactly.
I was just walking my brain through it while I was trying to.
Okay.
Visualize it for myself.
I want everybody to know. See, we don't reveal our shower thoughts before the show, so this is all raw. It's all raw.
Probably a good thing.
Okay,
just like being in the shower, it's all raw.
I have one last one for you. This is for both of you. I want Sandy's input on this one too. It says, think about this. When people think about traveling to the past, they worry about accidentally changing the present. But no one in the present really thinks they can radically change the future. Think about that.
I disagree with that.
No,
I really disagree with that. I think and especially those of us like doing the show and those of us that are involved in the lifestyle that we live in, aren't we? I mean, especially when we protest things that are going on that we disagree with, aren't we trying to change the future? Aren't we trying to change the things around us so that things in the future will be different than the crap that we have to go through right now? I mean, I get what you're saying, but I kind of disagree with that, because we are in the process of trying to change our lives. So we don't have to wear masks, every day. Of course, wearing a mask could save your life. But we're trying to get those things to be different. So
I get that. No, it's a good point. That's a really good point. Yet, but all those futuristic shows that show about time travel, they're always talking about, well, it's already been set in history. So if you change it now, it changes everything.
Right. But but the deal is, see, you gotta look at it, because when they're in the past, they're really only changing the future from that point of time to present time, because they're still in the past. You get what I'm saying? So yes. The future they're changing is really only from that point of time into up till now. I thought you wanted Sandy's input on this.
What do you think?
I think that I'm listening to you guys on that, because we are always trying to change our future. I agree with that. But how many okay, you know what? It's almost like people who say the word is powerful and true, but they really don't live it because they really don't believe it. They don't believe when they pray anything's going to happen, or when God's presence can be so heavily upon them because they're not in their word, that people can be touched, changed, healed, set free because of God in them. It's sort of like that. I think you have both sides.
Yeah, you do have both sides. And then here's the other thought too, is this: what about this thing called normalcy bias? where people think that today is going to be much like yesterday and tomorrow will be much like today, where they can't accept the fact that things could be changing and they get locked in. So when the masks come, well, that's the new normal.
There you go, right there.
All those things. So you got these different sides to think about, just throwing it out there, some shower thoughts. Now, and if you don't like those thoughts, we'll go to the next subject. Okay. All right. Hey, so America's favorite sandwich. Anybody? Mark, what do you think America's favorite sandwich is?
America's favorite sandwich?
Yes.
Probably hamburger.
Okay. Well, Sandy already knows this, but
I gave it to you.
You gave it to me. America's top sandwich is the grilled cheese, according to the results of a survey at YouGov. And it says grilled cheese earned the most nods for like or somewhat like, and came in with a 79% likability rating. Grilled cheese. How many grilled cheese do you have a week?
Well, none. Every once in a while we'll grill one up, but to me, see, I don't get that, because there are a few fast food places that do actually sell grilled cheese, and it's not the main thing on their menu. So, it would seem to me like if it was really America's favorite, they'd be going out there and getting fast food places to make them grilled cheese. And you see what I'm saying? You don't see fast food grilled cheese food chains. So I'm disagreeing, but that's what this is supposed to be. The show's called "Let Us Reason Together."
Exactly.
So let me ask you this then, as a follow-up to this.
Uh-huh.
If there were a grilled cheese fast food chain, what would it be called?
That's cheesy.
Say cheese.
That's cheesy.
That's cheesy, yeah.
Say cheese.
I don't think
I
so.
don't know. It's a good thought. Anybody there?
I just gave you one.
I know.
Say
Say
cheese,
cheese.
and in there, and then you have a smiley face. Cheese.
All right. Anybody in the chat room? Let us know what you think
Yeah,
about
there you
that.
There you
So,
go.
what should you name it?
Mark didn't.
Mark, what was your thoughts?
I just now came into my mind, so I really haven't come up with anything, but it's got to be like catchy. It's got to be
Like Chuck E. Cheese, which is
that's popped in my
catchy,
head. I was trying to
right?
play on that one. So I don't know. We'll think about it. Maybe we'll come up with it by the end of the show. That's good.
Yeah. But you know why it's one of the most popular? It's probably it's one of the easiest to make.
Oh well, on your own
time. You just make it real quick and
throw a little bit of lunch meat on it or something.
Yeah, I'd throw that in. No ham.
Yeah.
No pig.
Yeah. Well, now wait just a second. So now think about this though.
But it's not grilled cheese.
A cheeseburger actually be a grilled cheese with hamburger added to it?
Well, it could be. But it's not really a grilled cheese because a grilled cheese is simply meatless.
Grilled. Well, no, that's what I say. We add lunch meat to our. We'll throw a couple of slices of spam on top of it or something.
There you go. All right. Okay. One last thing before we go to our news. And it says, this is wacky but true. And this is 7 people riding a scooter. 7 people riding a scooter. Police in China pulled over a guy riding a scooter for carrying 6 other people on his vehicle. 3 men
were in America?
No, this is in China. In China.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 men were riding on the seat along with the driver, while one man straddled the front bumper, one sat atop the attached back compartment, and another stood on a foot peg. 2 of the passengers were so chill, they were enjoying cigarettes.
Huh. Yeah. You go to other countries like Philippines, and which I've been to several times, right? Having 2, 3, 4, 7 people riding on one motorcycle or even a scooter is no big deal.
Yeah.
That's no big deal at all.
It's just quite, get that picture in your head. But yeah, you're right. But that would, in America, wow, it wouldn't happen, would it?
No. Smiley one came up with a good one. Grill a cheese.
I like that. Grill a cheese.
Grill a cheese. I like that.
You like that?
That's
you can have a big grill up there with eating grilled cheese or something. Grill a cheese. I like it. Good one. Best one so far. Yeah.
Yeah. You could probably sell a few grilled cheese that way.
Well, Joe said that's cheesy. So we've had 4 suggestions. But
that's
but grill a cheese, that is pretty clever.
Yeah, I like that.
It's cheesy to me.
It's cheesy. All right. So there you go. Some thoughts for the day, some wacky news. Now we need to get into the real news before we get to the Torah portion and the Brit Hadashah, which you want to stay tuned to because we got some really good information we need to talk to y'all about. But we're going to put this on the table next. So what's our phrase that we say? Now, here's the news. All right. So I do have something I want us to talk about today, and this has to do with some real news that's going on. I'm not saying that the scooter news was not real news, but this is something that we really need to be paying attention to because and I'm going to talk about China today. Now, last week we talked about China. Well, I've got another issue regarding China, how that's going to affect the United States. It could affect the United States. It could affect the entire world. And this was an article that I picked up over at the HalTurnerRadioShow.com. And the article is this. By the way, I do want to say, going off of last week, and I was talking about China preparing for air raids, that was broken first on the HalTurnerRadioShow.com. It was followed up 5 days later that the Epic Times picked up on it, and they were giving a story about it. So that is a huge news outlet that's picking up on that same story. So you think, well, you're exaggerating. Well, think about that. It just got broke first. On Hal Turner, which we brought to you last week. This one is about China's giant Three Gorges Dam is deforming, and there's fears of failure and collapse. So what's that mean for us, and what's going on there? First off, the China's massive Three Gorges Dam crosses the giant Yangtze River, and it's under so much pressure from torrential rains and floodwaters that this gigantic dam is now physically deformed so badly that it can be seen by satellites in space. And these are now some very real fears that the dam will fail and collapse, sending massive amounts of floodwaters downstream, killing millions and wiping out all manufacturing in China. So let's get a picture about what's going on here. This dam, and I want to say, because I saw one report on it that I think it's like huge.
Where's it breaking?
Okay, so
you should have given Mark these pictures. He could have put them up.
I should have done that. Mark, you can go to the HalTurnerRadioShow.com and maybe put these pictures up for everybody as we're talking about it. But this picture on the right-hand side is when it's nice and straight. The picture here on the left-hand side.
Oh my goodness, it is.
It's like, it's all wavy. I mean, you're seriously wavy.
Wait. But look, this looks white and this looks gray.
Well, that's because it's just a different, it's the satellite picture, different years and all that type of thing. So it's exposure levels. I mean, the color of the water is different. But nevertheless, what we're looking at on this, on what's happening on this dam, I want to say it's like 3 miles wide. It may not be that wide. But it's huge. It's really, really long, and it's straight. It's just straight across the river. So it says in the article that the amount of compression of deformity is stunning, and it's not a piece of plastic or steel that can really bend. It's concrete.
HalTurner.com.
Yeah. HalTurnerRadioShow.com.
Okay.
Well, that's where I'm trying to go, but it's not getting me there. So I don't know. I mean, I'm there, but I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah. So it's going to be on one of the top articles. You'll look at the part. It'll be like number 6 or 7 down, I think, by now.
How do I get to under news?
Under news. Go to the homepage.
I am on the homepage, and it's just a bunch of advertisements.
Scroll down. You'll have to just scroll around on it. But
here,
it's not there. But it keeps going to like index PHP ENC. So
you can go to the world news. World news.
Okay, there. That's a different story. Yeah. Okay. Now what do I do?
And then just find the article about the Three Gorges Dam.
Okay.
Giant Three Gorges Dam.
Got it here. Okay. And so now, what do you want me to do with this?
So you can actually go and pull up the picture of the comparison of the dam from a few years ago to what it is today.
Okay, I see.
And so what we're looking at is going back some history on this dam. Is that when they were building it, they brought in the engineers. In fact, they brought in European and American engineers to look at it to see if what they were doing was going to work, because this is a huge engineering feat to be able to put a dam that long across that amount of water that it would be holding back. And most people said it could not be done. And engineers said, no, it's, you don't want to do that, not with that amount of pressure, that amount of distance that you're going to have to cover. The Chinese said, we're going to do it. We're going to do it anyway. So taking into comparison and looking at that, the engineers were looking at the welds. That's one of the things they had to look at, is the welds of the rebar and everything that was reinforcing this. And they said these welds aren't going to hold, not for the amount of pressure, not for the amount of the water weight against the dam, and especially if you come into a flood season, that it's going to put an enormous amount of pressure upon the dam. And they said it's not going to hold. It's not going to hold up. Well, they are now vindicated. China did not listen to them. They're now vindicated because China has been under torrential rainfall, and that's what's putting on the pressure of the Three Gorges Dam, that they have not been able to let out enough water to be able to take the weight of that water off of the dam. And so but in course, in opening up those floodgates and letting the water downstream, they're flooding out thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland. Even right now, there are floodings in cities just because they cannot get enough pressure off that dam. But there's a picture right there on your screen. You can see on the left-hand side is what it looks like now. What it's supposed to look like is what's on the right-hand side. You can see the wave that's going across that dam. The engineers use very high-grade steel reinforcing when building something like a dam. The steel prevents the movement of the concrete from stretching and bending. It looks now, however, that either the Chinese engineers didn't use the right steel, or perhaps they didn't use enough steel. And of course, what I brought up earlier in one of the reports I had read a week or so ago was talking about the welds were not even superior enough to be able to hold it back. So what happens if it fails? And this is where we're going to get into how it'll affect the world. If the Three Gorges Dam is completely collapsed, more than 10 billion cubic meters of the reservoir water will be released in a short time. And the coast between the dam site and Shashi City will be directly impacted by flood waves, resulting in serious disaster losses. So not talking about the flow per cubic meters or anything like that. It's basically this, is that when it begins to flow, if it were to break loose, we're talking about 65 kilometers per hour. So 65 kilometers an hour, we're probably looking at about 45 miles an hour. And let me go down a little bit more in terms of what this means. It's the average elevation of Yichang, which is one of the cities downriver, is less than 50 meters above sea level. And no, Yichang, I think, is where it's at. When the flood level reaches 64 to 71 meters above sea level, Yichang City is 20 meters below water. So what are we talking about this? Residents of Yichang will have little chance to escape after the Three Gorges Dam burst, and it'll be the flood water will peak about a half an hour after the dam bursts, and that's in one city. About 500,000 will be killed, which is pretty serious. Not only Yichang cannot hold, Shashi cannot hold, Yichang Plain cannot hold. These are all different places where there's some other
cities. There's cities. There's guess what the next one is.
And there's locks. But Wuhan, remember Wuhan, the Wuhan virus, it cannot hold.
Virus, the China virus.
The China virus came out of that level 4.
Which is interesting because remember, if it's destroyed, it's that level 5 or whatever
lab. I mean, what else is in that lab?
All those diseases that they've been playing and manipulating and making weaponizing.
These are all downriver. Beijing and Guangzhou, the Beijing Kowloon Railway cannot hold. The scope of the flood will reach Nanjing. Okay, so I may have gotten the coastal city wrong, but basically, I think Nanjing might be the coastal city. So this is all downriver.
Didn't you say it's also a lot of land?
Yeah. So let's get into that. So this deadly flooding arrives in Wuhan in 10 hours, in Nanjing in one day. Tens of thousands of meters of flood washes across buildings. It's hard to imagine that people can escape. I mean, think about the sheer people trying to leave those cities to get to high ground. and traffic jams and all of that. The Yangtze River Valley is the center of China's elite gravity, with 38% water. So Yangtze River Valley is 38% water, 25% arable land, 40% grain, 33% cotton, 66% fresh water, and 350 million people. That's the entire population of the United States in that river valley. So think about the effect. The downstream area of the Three Gorges Dam is China's strategic power. And according to Yang Lang, a military commentator, the Three Gorges project is very critical and very sensitive position, the whole nation's of China's national defense. If the dam breaks, both space and time will have a significant impact on the whole national defense. And the effect of the disaster field is serious. In the lower reaches of the Three Gorges Dam, the central plains of the Three Gorges have always been the battleground of the army, and now it's the main military place for China. 45% of the Chinese army, 45% of the Chinese army.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, 20% of the armored division, 38% of the infantry division, and 100% of the airborne division is all downstream of the Three Gorges Dam. So it's the strategic reserve force of China is right there, and the strategic mobile force of China. It's the strategic mobile force is consumed, or if it's consumed by the dam break, then the results will be serious. And China will be economically ruined. The army's wiped out, and it'll be left without food, military, or defenses. Now, here's another thing about it. It's some of the main manufacturing areas, and transportation and storage and warehousing of manufacturing of China is all in the flood zone. So, which means it'll affect the rest of the world in terms of so much of our goods come out of China, come to North America, come to South America, Europe, Africa. They all come out of this area. One of the things that we also know about this, think about this. Where do we get in our own electrical grid system in America? Where do we get the spare parts from? Where do we get the transformers? Where do we get all of our power station resources from? So if America comes under some type of attack, how are we going to even get some of our electrical grid put back up if that is taken out or destroyed? If we're thinking about food, where is China going to feed the other 750 million people that they have there? Where are they going to be looking for food? They're going to look for other bread baskets. It's going to put an amazing amount of pressure upon the food resources of the world. So we want to keep these things in mind. This is tremendous. Now, another thought that comes into my mind is, what about the weather wars that take place, where there is an ability to manipulate the weather? Is this some type of strategic? Now, this is kind of on the conspiracy side of thing. Is there some type of strategic pressure that's been put on to cause such tremendous amount of rain upon the upstream areas, so to put pressure on this dam, perhaps to cause a major failure within China, to pull them out of the world's strategic, as we were talking about last week, that strategic arms race and the pressure of perhaps war against the United States, and let alone they have the Silk Road, and how they have all of these different places around the world where they have gone in to take out the resources, Afghanistan, Africa, into the Middle East, all of these different strategic alliances that China has built up in order to extract their resources for themselves. What is this going to do in terms of the economies of the world, and how is it going to affect, and how is China going to be able to survive this? What's it going to do in terms of our relationship with China? Will they be coming for our resources, those that are the survivors of it? The pressures are really big. Is this Yahweh's plan or something, just as Smiley One has said here, is there a plan? Is Yahweh doing something to protect maybe the nations because of the threat that China poses upon the world?
And things that China's done.
And the things that China's done. So there you go. This is some very, very big world impacting event, all based on an engineering feat that was defective. And if the pressure continues at Three Gorges Dam, if they don't release enough water, what are the results? And what are y'all's thoughts? The day and the hour we're living in, who could think, of course, mankind always has his plans, their plans, and yet Yahweh is going to be supreme over all of it. Your thoughts, Mark?
Oh, I don't, I mean, it's just like every day is some big catastrophe coming up. It's something new, and look up for our redemption draws nigh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like every day, every week, every hour, it's something that we keep hearing about. And thank God for the internet, that we can stay abreast of everything that is happening in the world, because if 20, 30 years ago, how would we know any of this stuff? It's so thank God that we have all this. And another thought you were talking about is the place Wuhan or whatever it is, where they developed the virus. The thought that goes through my head is when you're talking about a place like that being wiped out, or any CDC place or anything like that, you wash all of those things into the water and into the water system. And now it's not just airborne, it's all waterborne. And now it goes into the ocean, and, the oceans are now got all this stuff in there. And I don't know, I mean, it's just like one thing on top of another, and it just keeps building. And pretty soon, God's wonderful earth that it's already that way, but God's wonderful earth that he created for us to thrive and survive on, is now tainted even that much more. And it's like, I don't want to go home yet. So I don't know how else to put it. Is I don't want to go home yet. I'm enjoying life as it is now, and how it is, and that type of thing. So that's my only thoughts. I don't know. I got nothing to say about the dam, because I don't know. It's interesting news, but all we can do is, like everything else, sit back and wait.
Yep. Sit back, wait, see what happens. And Yahweh has a way of cleansing the earth, refreshing the earth. And we know that we know, and there's things that he does to reset the earth. I don't wish any ill will on the innocent people of China. And yet we do have major threats that have come from China and through China, and which many parts of our own government are in alignment with. I mean, even Joe Biden, who made 60 trips to China, making up deals and setting up things in a relationship with China that puts us in dependency with them, which is the other thing, is that what do they say? 90% of our pharmaceuticals come out of China.
This should be a wake-up call that they need to come back to America. America needs to produce.
Yeah, President Trump's been saying this all along for 3.5 years, and those that are resisting him are actually not looking out for the good of the American people. And we have an economy; it's been built the way it is. It was set in place after World War II, and yet here we are having to live in it, and where we changed our economy from a manufacturing economy to a service related economy, and yet now we see how we are so interdependent with other nations around the world. When disaster hits this particular area, it does affect not just America, where we're coming from, where our point of view is coming from, but we're talking about all of the nations of the world will feel the effect. Just even as the coronavirus, the Chinese virus is affecting the entire world, where even by the UN's own numbers have shown that because millions of people are starving now because of the coronavirus and the lockdowns of the economy. Because when the first world begins to have problems, the third world dies. And the first world goes into a third world condition. Those are the things that are happening. So do you have any thoughts, Sandy?
Well, I believe that we need to trust Yahweh, that his plans are not our plans, and that he knows how all this plays out. And we need to be close to him. We need to not fear. Things could happen. It's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to the world. As things collapse around the world, it shouldn't surprise us, but we should rejoice and say we get to be a part, as so many of old would have longed to have been a part of what's going on right before our eyes. And remember that his plans and purposes will come to fruition no matter what man does. The nations will bow down eventually and learn who is Yahweh. And as we see this happening and all these plans going forth, secret plans of Biden and other people making their way, it's foolishness in the eyes of God, because he's like, that's what you think you're doing.
Psalm chapter 2.
Just as the mountains can collapse on those that hide in the caves, so could all of these plans come to naught, because we still have a people that are praying. As just in the area where Mark is, as Tova said last hour, there's 7,000 just like her. Now multiply that around the nation and maybe even around the world. There are still many on their face praying and interceding, not only for the U.S., but for the things going on around the world. So we have an army that is there, and the army continues to wake up, and we join arm in arm. Yah's purposes will reign upon the earth, and those that do not follow him, despite what the news says and despite what it looks like around us, they will fall to ruin. If our lives are taken, it's just a simple breath away from the next life, from not literally the next life like reincarnation, but to be absent from the body is to be present with Yahweh. And it's okay. But we've also got to be sure that we are close to him. And when he says march, we march. If he says stay, we stay. We've got to make sure we're in right relationship, that we have learned to hear the still small voice, so that we know what our position is in the midst of all the crisis that goes around it. We are supposed to be as Yeshua was in the boat. Why are you guys upset? Yeah, the storm's raging. Yeah, the boat feels like it could be inundated with water or flood or sink, but it won't, because we rest in him. And that's what our position should be in. And that position in itself will cause jealousy for the rest of the world. And it'll cause, why are these people fine? Why are these people protected? Why are these people not worried and fretting? Why? It's Yeshua. So it's one more opportunity. Yeah, this may be tragic, but if it's his plan, it's the way it's supposed to be.
There you go. That's a good word right there. Absolutely. Well, that's the news that I had for today, and some things to think about. What a strategic thing. And if you think about militarily speaking, what a strategic impact could take place if that dam was just simply taken out. Right. Think about, because of what is all downstream from that dam. Cool. All right. Very good. Well, that's it for this edition of the news. And stay tuned for the Torah portion.
I actually don't know where you want me to go on the Torah portion. You have two choices. We can talk about Revelation and Kings and how it relates to Deuteronomy 7:23 through 24. the 3 points that emerge from the promise there. We can talk about Zakar and remembering, and Moshe telling us about do not fear and all of that.
Well,
so what would you like to talk about?
Well, you know what? This week's Torah portion is called Ekev. And I think you should go with your gut.
No, I asked you.
So why don't you go to the first one?
The Kings?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we're going to look at Deuteronomy 7, 23, 24, which contains 3 points in the promise. It says, but Yahweh your Elohim will deliver them before you, just what we were just talking about, and will throw them into great confusion until they are destroyed. He will deliver their kings into your hands so that you will make their name perish from under heaven. So man will be able to, no man will be able to stand before you until you have destroyed them. Okay. I want you to, that is Deuteronomy 7, 23 through 24. And when you read the Saperstein edition, it says, Hashem, your God, will deliver them before you and will confound them with great confusion until their destruction, and deliver the king into your hand, and you shall cause their name to perish from under heavens. No man will stand up against you until you have destroyed them. Now, I want us to relate this to Revelation, because to me, these promises go right hand in hand with what we're looking at today, and they go right hand in hand with end time stuff. Now, I want you to remember that the root of Abaddon is Avad, and that's where some may get the name lost. But Revelation 9, 1 through 12, it'll take a lot of time for me to read it, but I want you to mark it. Revelation 9, 1 through 12, and go around and read it. It's got the 5th angel sounding the trumpet and the results, et cetera, et cetera. So you go and read it. And we also need to remember that Scripture, or the record of Scripture, is really rebellion and obedience to Yahweh's commands. And when we don't obey, when we are not following his commands, we make ourselves naked. We do. And I've talked about that over and over at Life of Worship. But we need that covering of obedience. We need that righteousness. We've got to remove the rebellion from our lives. And the world around us is rebelling. And that's what we see, is the earth is an upheaval as a result of the rebellion of man. And the earth is waiting to be healed. How? Because the sons of Yahweh, the sons and daughters of Yahweh, take a stand and begin to speak life and take dominion. And that's what all of creation's waiting for. But we have creation being affected at the 5th trumpet, because Abaddon, the bottomless pit, is a destructive powers. And guess what? Yahweh yields it. It may be destructive power, but Yahweh harnesses it for his purposes. So when disaster comes, something happens, Yahweh can harness it for his purposes, because he will show himself as the one true, only Yahweh God. That is him. And the world will know. So when we think about the chariots, and when we think about the wheels falling off the chariots as the Egyptians left Egypt, something very interesting happens, because in that we're supposed to not only remember we're supposed to remember what Yahweh's done. We're supposed to remember his miracle power, Zakar, remember, which means to be male as well, because that helps testify to what Yahweh's going to do for us as his people, even today. So we're confusion. Let's look at some of the promises that are in this passage, because confusion is one of them. He's going to confound the enemies who resist Israel's return to the covenant. Those that resist the Yahweh's plan, those that resist Yahweh himself, are going to be brought to confusions. Vehema mehuma gadolah. Okay, so we have in there hamam, which is a Hebrew word for confusion. And you can look at Exodus 14, 23 through 25 for that. And that's very interesting too. But here's something that you need to think about. It says that Yahweh looked down at the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud and brought the army of the Egyptians into confusion. Hamam. Now, what's also interesting is that the Egyptians themselves said this, let us flee from Israel, for the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians. Now, that's the third person, and they're the ones saying it. Isn't it interesting that they would make a statement like that? it's almost like the Egyptians was another entity, almost the way they spoke that. So, because it's really strange. So the Lord is fighting for them against us. I don't know. Think about that. Who are the Egyptians that the Egyptians are talking about here? Maybe the Egyptian army is speaking of an inspiration, a spiritual force. Remember, there are spiritual forces that reign over territories. You know, you can have good and you can have bad. Maybe it's talking about a spiritual force that's driving this darkness that's called Egypt or Mitzrayim. So think about that. There are principalities, powers, and rulers in high places that literally control nations, that control lands, that control leaders and rulers who are in rebellion against Yahweh's word. So here we have this dark force called Egypt that is causing people to become spiritually naked, that's driving them. And, you know, we go back to who can stand before the sons of Anak. And that's Deuteronomy 9:1-9. Know therefore today that it is the Lord your God who is crossing over before you as a consuming fire. He will destroy them and he will subdue them before you so that you may drive them out and destroy them quickly, just as the Lord has spoken to you. Do not say in your heart when your Lord your God has driven your enemies out. That's paraphrase me, your enemies, before you, because of my righteousness. The Lord has brought me into this promised land, basically. Because the victories that we're going to see for Yahweh's people, we didn't do. He did it. Because the fire from heaven destroys the sons of hell. Where in Revelation we see that. Those who seem so strong that we could not defeat them. Well, we can't defeat them of our own might, but Yahweh can. Remember Gideon and the confusion he brought into the enemy's camp. We're going to see that played out over and over and over. The enemy will destroy itself and fall on its own sword. Yeah, there may be some fallout, but we still trust in him. Who is able to stand these fortified cities? These fortified up to heaven. You know what that means? If the word says that their cities are fortified up to heaven, it implies that their source and their strength is evil. Again, it's the principalities, powers, rulers in dark places, because hell has been laid open. So the sons of Anakim, the giants, were produced how, angels, women get together, and we have these Anakim, these giants that came into creation, the offspring. That these are not, when you hear of the tales of the Roman gods and the Greek gods and all these other, there's truth in elements of all of those. Those are Nephilim. They're the sons of Anakim. So when we finally get to cross over to our land of inheritance, it's going to be a sign, because it's Yah's righteousness and his goodness, because he said he's going to bring them into confusion. He's done it over and over, and he's going to do it for us again. So we don't fear, but we remember, we remember who we are. That's part of being a male. Male is a car, remembering, so that we will not run in fear, that we will rest on his truth. And then we also know that Yeshua's temptations in the wilderness, what did he use against Hasatan himself? He uses the word. Folks, the word is our weapon. It's one of our weapons, and we've got to quote it, because Yeshua is the word. He's the bread of heaven, and he gave us the example. He gave us the example of how to live. And we need to act that out. Now, there's more to it, but the second things, it talks about the kings. Moses prophesies that the kings will be delivered into the hands of Israel. Well, we have a lot of kings that have set up their authority. We know that there are kings that are so-called kings, maybe not in name because they're hidden, but they are pulling every string of this, of everything that's going on around the world. Well, guess what? The word promises that they're going to be delivered into the hands of Israel. In Revelation, kings of the abyss, called Abaddon, his destructive army is delivered over for the good of Israel. Abaddon's evil flying bugs torment and bring ultimate destruction to those who are wicked. Now, we look in Revelation, it always talks about fallen stars. Well, we need to remember that in Jewish tradition, spiritual beings were given authorities, and we just talked about that. And metaphorically, they're called stars or planets. And what did I just say? Those stars are falling. The principalities that are ruling over are falling. Why? Because the army of heaven is fighting. We can't see it. We're supposed to fight here and do what we're supposed to do with his word, with worship, with declaration and in action, how he tells us. But there's also spiritual forces. Michael's leading the armies of heaven, and there's spiritual things going on that we can't see. but the stars will fall. These gods that have been worshiped throughout time that reinvent themselves will fall, because that's the promise that we see here in Deuteronomy. You know, we see that corruption because people worship planets and stars. It's part of worshiping the kings. But we've got to remember, no man can stand against what God has in plan. No man can stand against you until you have destroyed them. That context is the words of the wicked, who cannot escape the blindness of their torment. The wicked say that. No man can stand against this God. No man can stand against these people called Israel. No man can stand. Why? Because the kings of the earth and the great men and the commandments and the rich and the strong and every slave and every free man hid themselves in caves and among rocks in the mountains. And they said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us and hide us for the presence of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of the wrath is come. Who is able to stand? They begin to realize they've been in the wrong, with the wrong team all along, and destruction is coming. And then we see this third promise, which is the identification of the fulfillment of the prophecy of Deuteronomy. The kings of the earth acknowledge that they can't stand against the throne of the Lamb of Israel. They realize that. So we hear about everything going on. We hear about these dam could break, and that an army that's tried to come against God's people could be destroyed. We hear about the manipulation and the hiding of truth, and governments really out for the destruction of their own people to change their DNA. Who can stand? For the kings will fall. Who can stand against Yahweh our Elohim? Well, you and I, it goes back to what your story really was, what I said about there. We rest in him because this Torah portion promises us that we will, we know Yahweh prevails, but we rest in him because he is going to defeat and has already defeated, but he is going to defeat using his own weapons in his own way, because there are more for us than against us. And he will use the plans of the enemy, and they will fall into their own traps. We see that promise in Psalm over and over. And I've used up all of everybody's time. So I'm going to be quiet now so y'all can comment really quick.
That's some really good thoughts there. Mark, thoughts on the Torah portion?
As usual, she always brings up things that I never think about. And I love it because it's thought-provoking. But who can stand against God? No one can, but we can stand with God. I liked you had a couple of different instances about the rebellion, and when you're in rebellion, you're naked, you're exposed. And all rebellion, all evil is so stupid because it rises, it falls, it rises, it falls, it rises, it falls. It's like evil is the stupidest entity that's ever been around, because it never looks back on what's happened. It always just goes forward in stupid rebellion, and it always falls. But it never remembers that it's fallen before. It rises in rebellion again and keeps falling, rises and falls, rises and falls. It's the stupidest thing, because it is naked. It's wide open. You can see, well, at least if you're in the Spirit of God, these things are revealed, and we can see that it is rebellion, that it is evil, and that it is going to fall eventually. Whereas, and I've titled this for the segment out of this, I've titled it "Remove the Rebellion and Be Covered by Obedience." And so as we are obedient to the one and only true God, we are covered by that. We go with God, not against God, and we're covered by him, his grace, and everything that he has for us, so that we never rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. We're always risen with him. That's the way I see it from what you just taught.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And Sandy, I think that was really good teaching. And I really was thinking about how there was that one prophetic story about this preacher that was up there fighting against powers and principalities, which he didn't have the authority to do. And it was like he was standing up on this pedestal and he was it's like throwing axes at the moon.
It was a vision.
It was a vision. Yeah. And he ended up he was going strong. Going strong, and he wore out, and he just collapsed, and because he was operating outside of his authority. Mm-hmm. But when you were talking about how the Egyptians said about the Egyptians themselves, or we're talking about the powers and principalities that were coming against Israel, always pursuing Israel, and yet when those are powers and principalities pursuing Israel, what did we see within scriptures? How, when we saw the attacks come, where we see it's the Egyptians, powers and principalities, which we've been freed from their slavery. And we see it in whether it was the Moabites and the Midianites or that type of thing in times of Gideon, or the times that Jehoshaphat had to go out against the armies. And what did they do? First is they sent the praisers. They didn't get up there with their warfare prayer to take out the powers and principalities. They got up there with their worship. They got up there and they went first. They were the ones that went before the armies. And then the residual is cleaned up by the army. So that which is in the physical is cleaned up after the praising goes forth, because that's truly where our warfare is, not when we take up our warfare prayers against the powers and the principalities, but it is in our worship that destroys their foundation. So that which is manifesting in the physical can be cleaned up in the natural by God's people. And I was just thinking about that. That's one of the things I got from that, and how much it's lacking within our Messianic and Hebrew roots communities is people walk out and worship, or they wait till the worship's done before they come in because they want that.
Or they talk all through worship.
Or they talk through worship. They don't want to engage, understanding the benefit of the power of that worship. So, well, hey, we're getting close to the end. Mark, I want to hear from you on the Brit.
Okay. Let's see how I can apply, if I can. The Brit Hadashah is Matthew 16:13 through 20, and it starts off when Yeshua came into the territory around Caesarea Philippi. He asked his Talmudim, "Who are people saying the Son of Man is?" And then it goes on with several things that when people read this discourse in here, they always want to talk about who do you say that I am? And Kepha's remark with you're the Mashiach, Son of the living God. And of course, it goes on with Kepha saying, or Yeshua saying to him, on this rock I'll build my community, so on and so forth. And most people talk about that, but I've very rarely heard anybody actually talk about Yeshua calling himself and asking all the Talmudim, who are the people saying the Son of Man is? And I've always wondered about that. And when you do research on this particular thing, it goes a billion different ways, because everybody's got their own concept of it, when in fact it's so funny, because usually when you have something where so many people go so many different directions trying to explain a very simple wordage like the Son of Man, the easiest and the simplest explanation of it is usually the most right explanation. And so I kind of did a little bit of quick research on it, and it's interesting because the expression "Son of Man" occurs 81 times in the New Testament or the Greek text, whereas in Hebrew the Old Testament, it's 110 times Son of Man is used, but it's used in it's actually in Hebrew, it's the term Ben Adam, and in Aramaic, it's Bar Adam, but it's used in a lot of different ways. But the Hebrew expression there of Ben Adam is actually the interesting form here that a lot of people don't realize. And years and years and years ago, way back in the early days of my searching out the Messianic lifestyle and trying to find out if I really wanted to live this lifestyle, and why was it different than the Christian lifestyle that I was living. This is one of the expressions. This is one of the things that I looked up, and it actually helped me to understand what my walk was to be. And Ben Adam, meaning the son of Adam, is actually an expression that, even though it's used 110 times in the Old Testament, it's not something that the Hebrews of today use very often. As a matter of fact, you'll rarely find a Jewish person named Adam, simply because the connotation of who Adam is and the fall and what happened to Adam and the teachings, the rabbinic teachings on Adam are so negative that no respectable Jewish couple will name their son Adam. And so, I mean, there are Jewish people, but most people that name their son Adam are secular or whatever, and they don't know the stories behind it. But Son of Man, it always goes back to me, always, and every time, because of way back when I looked this up, I always go to Numbers 23:19, which is, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make good? I looked it up real quick to talk about it here and didn't look any other. Anyway, so this actually boils down to, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man. And when you actually look that up, the better translation is, he is not a mortal that he should have to repent. And to me, that is really a deep understanding. And I remember years ago of looking up Rashi's explanation of this, and it's something that helps us to put into perspective who we are, and not to build ourselves up into the fact that we can be like God, or that we are we can be with God, like what Sandi was talking about, and we can work with God in that type of thing. But in our rebellion, we a lot of times will almost make ourselves equal to God and not really work so much with God as be our own entities. And we sometimes forget that thought of being mortal. We are mortal. We are not God. We are not Yeshua, but we do have eternal life. But while here on earth, we can't make ourselves higher than God. We can't make ourselves equal with God. We can't present ourselves as so uppity and high and everything. It's interesting. We're doing a discourse on offense on the next chapter, and it always makes me think of being an offender, and an offender always raises themselves up as being the highest and above everything else. And this Numbers 23:19 always brings me back into who I am and where I stand with God. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I was just thinking about something you said, Mark, is that we have to realize that there's no formula in living out our walk. In other words, there's we walk out our walk with Yeshua in a relationship by which we must have an ear to the voice of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. We have to have that. We can't pray for the sick and expect that same formula to work every time. We can't expect that how God did it for one person, that he's going to do it in the exact same way he did it for the other person. Yet God's not a respecter of persons, that healing belongs to everyone. We believe that deliverance, salvation, it belongs to everyone. And yet there's no particular way that we all have to follow that same path. And so when we put all of these things into perspective, it has to do with we're mortal and he's not. Therefore, he's got the big picture, and that we, not only individually, but we collectively as a body. I mean, that's how the scripture speaks, and Hebraically speaking, it's always talking about Israel as a whole, Israel as a community, and not Israel as the individual in the parts. Yet there are parts that it talks about an individual, but we have to operate together to be functional. And therefore, understanding our part in the body as mortal means to be functional. We operate together, listening to his voice. And that is, that's my takeaway of one of the things you were just talking about there, Mark.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean, you got to go back. Yeshua actually said the words, says, who are people saying the Son of Man is? And he's referring to himself. Yeshua referring to himself, the Son of Man.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep that in perspective, knowing that he is God and he is man at the same time.
Yeah.
And so there's so much to that.
Yeah. Well, and it's different than Bob Dole always talking about himself in the third person.
Good one. Really.
Okay, now I've dated myself, but
no, that's good.
So those that are in my generation and older understand what I just said.
That's good.
So,
where's Sandy go? Get her back here.
She had to slip away for just a minute. So.
Okay, I understand. I get it. I understand. It's straight up the hour, so
it is. So it's hard for us to bring that to a close, but yeah, good word. Good word. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Mark, for bringing the Torah portion, half Torah portion, and
nice to have you here, John.
It's nice to be here. It's nice to be on with you all today. So, well, some things to be thinking about, some things to kind of chew on for a while from so many different perspectives. And by the way, everybody that's in there in the chat room, thank you for commenting. Thank you for putting in your thoughts and stuff. Before you leave today, give us a thumbs up. We want to make sure, share it on your social media. Get the word out about Messianic Lamb Network. We appreciate that as well. And we want to make sure that you're stay tuned this week for other great programming. Tomorrow will be the Chameleons Church. You never know, because YouTube wants to take them down on some of the topics that they discuss. So you want to catch it first before they're taken down. And want to mention that. So, well, I'm just going to bring it to a close. We want to say thank you so much for being part of the show today. And so thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sandy. And on behalf of Let Us Reason Together, the Monday edition, Shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie. thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.